Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penchi's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Douglas Spencer from Spencer Brenneman. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Heck yeah. So could you just start? I know I just introduced you, but could you just introduce yourself in whatever way you'd like? And kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your point in your career, how you got here, and anything that you think would be relevant.
Okay, all right. Well, I am a brand strategist. I have a small boutique firm based out of Boston that helps small, mid-sized, and nonprofit organizations take a step back and think about who they are in this moment, and then find the best, authentic, most compelling message that will take them into the future. I have been doing this for 10 years. Before that, I was global head of brand for a corporation called Thomson Reuters, which it still exists, but not in the same format that it did 10 years ago. And yeah, I love what I do, and I love helping organizations get clear on who they are and how they can help others.
That's awesome. So, how does that strategy kind of work when you talk to them about what their identity, I guess, is? Because a lot of people have trouble with that. I've noticed in businesses think that they know who they are, but then they're doing something that really isn't aligned with what they think they are.
Right, right. Well, there's a couple things at play here. The first is I think that we all make, whatever we do, we make incremental changes along the way. So we'll tweak it a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And suddenly we're doing things here, but our message is still pointed in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, it's human nature. We're all focused on getting things done, but we forget about making certain that the message aligns with how you evolve.
Hmm.
The second thing, and this is really another human condition, is we all spend a lot of time here. We forget what we know that other people don't know because we live and breathe what we work. And it's like explaining a Netflix series, season 3, episode 4, to someone who's only seen season 1, episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we just get ahead of ourselves. And then I think the final thing is that we all assume that we know what people are thinking. And I've worked in the for-profit sector, I've worked in the nonprofit sector, and I can tell you, leaders from both types of organizations have told me, "Oh, we don't need market research. I know what people are thinking," and I can tell you that no one does. And it is a false sense of security if you think you know what people are thinking.
Yeah, I think that no one can really know, especially the market constantly changes and evolves constantly. There's no way of even marketers sometimes don't know things that are happening and they're constantly versed in the space.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a yeah, I think that a lot of people like to know that they know the most about their own consumers, but I think that it's really hard for them to put themselves in the perspective of a consumer when they're so engrossed in their own company or business. So I completely understand that. A question that I did have about what you said is, do you think it's okay for a business to constantly change their message, or do you think that it's better to stick with something and just abide by that?
Well, I think it depends on how you're defining the word message.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it's about how you talk about what you do today, and it's different from how you talked about it a week ago, that's one thing. But if you're presenting yourself in a consistent way, if your brand is consistent, if your values are the same, if your core operating is the same, then you can tweak how you talk about it. But
Mm-hmm.
that has to come first. You have to be able to know. There was many years ago in Boston, there was a nightclub that you walked in, and there was a sign on the wall that said dress code: know who you are and dress appropriately. And I love that, and I think it's so true for marketing and messaging. Organizations who know who they are, know what it is they do, why it matters, and how they do it differently than everybody else. If they can stick to that, how they bring that to life from a tweak here and a tweak there won't really matter. But if you're just throwing things up against the wall to see what sticks, that's an issue.
Well, so if you're talking to a company or a business that doesn't know who they are, like maybe I mentioned earlier, how do you talk to them about who they are? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Right. Well, we have a methodology that we use, and it starts with what we call the ask phase, and that's asking questions. So most of the time, we will have in-depth interviews with leadership, with employees, especially those who are customer facing. We'll talk to a few customers. We'll talk to, ideally, if we can, prospects who decided not to go with the company, and we'll really ask some questions to get a sense of what people are thinking. For many companies, we will do an online survey that aims to do the same thing, to really get some data. And then what we do is we explain, okay, here's what the data say, and here's what you're saying. And more importantly, here are the miscommunications, or here are the misconceptions that people have. And those tend to raise eyebrows. People say, oh, well, that's not good. Whereas they say, if you say something like, oh, your message isn't right, yeah, well, that's too bad. But if you say people are thinking the wrong thing, then they're like, oh, well, we got to fix that.
Mm. So it's just a way of phrasing it or framing it to them so that they understand.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you believe then? So talking about things that I guess maybe they aren't acknowledging. What do you think in the brand strategy space, an element that's really overlooked?
Oh, the tone of voice is one thing.
Huh.
The tone of voice is often overlooked. People, when they hear the word branding, they think logo, they think colors, they think fonts, which are an integral part of your brand identity. But your tone of voice is equally important. There's a lot of great examples out there. So, for example, if you go to the Apple website and the Microsoft websites and say, look up their language on diversity, equity, inclusion, neither one is better or worse than the other, but the tone of voice is significantly different. In the nonprofit space, you look at an organization like Greenpeace, and you look at an organization like the Nature Conservancy. They're essentially trying to have the same end goal in mind, but their tone of voice is significantly different, and it helps connect you with people in an emotional way that they may not. It's kind of the emotional undercurrent to your words and what you say. And I think that's one of the things for branding that people really misunderstand and just take for granted. So tone of voice easily is one of the most, is my answer.
I think that's a really great answer because I haven't heard something like that before, and that makes a lot of sense. I think that I don't know, because the way that someone says something is very critical to you being convinced to use their service or product. And I think like it's it's psychology. It's just like the way in which they understand it. And I never really thought about it like that. I usually think of a more content centered approach,
Mhm.
especially with nonprofits. Something that I notice, because we always interact with nonprofits, is if the message or if the website is centered around a person that maybe is the founder of the organization rather than the organization's work itself, we're
Mhm.
less likely to work with them.
Yeah.
And I think that people who would want things from this organization would probably be less likely to work with them too. Do you ever
Right.
see something like
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah, I've totally seen that on both the for and nonprofit sides. But we believe that there are three core elements to a strong message. The first is authenticity. People are very cynical nowadays. We're on the lookout for people who are telling us what we think, just what they think we want to hear.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's differentiation, and that's got to be clear. How do you do what you do in a way that is relevant and competitively differentiated for all the other options people have? And the third is emotion. There's got to be an emotional element to it, because whether we admit it or not, human beings make decisions with two lenses. One is the analytical, like cost of ownership, return on investment. The other is emotional. How will it make me feel? Will it make me feel proud of the work I've done? Will it make me feel like I'm just killing it? How will it make me feel? And so that's important that you integrate that into your message as well. And the other important reason that that's important is because I don't think of any business, except maybe Amazon, where everybody is a perfect client for you, right? You're
Mm.
not everybody is a great fit for us, and we're not a great fit for everybody. And so having an authentic tone of voice, as well as a message that's clear around differentiation and that comes through as authentic, helps you align yourself with the right prospects. So you're not you're not working with, or you're not connecting with organizations that you just are not a good fit. So that's one of the many ways that branding and marketing can help organizations find the right type of other organizations to work with.
What is your ideal client?
Wow, what is my ideal client? Well, it's an organization that is open to hearing new things about themselves, that are not married to anything in particular for any illogical reason, or just, that just um, that isn't, that just is stubborn for no reason at all. And they're an organizations that are trusting, that trust us to do what we do best, because that is what we do best. One of the challenges I think that all marketers have is that many people think that because they're marketed to, they are experts in marketing, and same with branding and all of that. And so I think it's sometimes especially when you get like type A personalities, they believe they know what they want, and you're just going to help them do it. So that's not an ideal client for us.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Are you still okay with clients being a little that way? Like they know exactly what they want, but they're just particular
Well,
about
no,
something.
absolutely. I mean, we will never know our clients' businesses better than they. And
Mhm.
so, it's a balance, right? But it has to come from it has to come from a place of an informed decision. It can't just be. Oh my gosh, many years ago, one of my first jobs out of college, I was doing marketing for a small high tech consulting firm, and I put together this direct mail piece, and one of the principals came in and said, "Oh, you can't use yellow. That was my mother's favorite color, and I hate her." Um, honest to God, not making that up. And so it's a great story,
That's
but
hysterical.
it's ridiculous. So, but if someone says it's not, you can't use yellow because the feedback we've gotten from Asia is that color has a different connotation than it does here. Absolutely fine. But just because you don't like the color yellow, sorry.
Yeah, that might do really well with your clients, even if you don't like the color yellow. You have to see it every day, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I do hear stories like that a lot. People are definitely I think what's interesting too is creating a campaign that on all fronts looks like it will be successful, but they look at the deliverables and they just don't like it. But it has
Mhm.
like there's nothing there could be a backstory like that, but sometimes it's just this yeah, I just like this wouldn't work on me. And it's like, well,
Right.
you're
Right.
not
Right. Right.
the consumer.
And, and Shannon, one of the other things I've learned over the years is that, and this is something that people who aren't marketers don't necessarily get, and that is there is not one perfect answer to any particular question. There are any number of creative approaches, any number of marketing strategies that could actually work just as well as the other. So if you spend a lot of time trying to find that perfect anything, it's probably time that could be spent better elsewhere. The old adage, never let perfect be the enemy of good. Enemy of done.
Mhm.
And I tweak that a little bit, like don't let the search for perfect, which doesn't really exist, be the enemy of done.
No, that definitely adds up because I think that I was actually just talking about a similar concept the other day with someone about how agencies are constantly looking up to kind of corporate structures to model after, and because they see that that's a level of perfection, or in so to speak, because they've been around for so long, or like that structure has been there forever, so it must work
Mhm.
or make people happy or whatever it may be. And what I think I noticed is that a lot of agencies model themselves after this, but it doesn't really work for us.
Mm.
And I think that it's because um it's not perfection. Corporations are not perfect. I think that's why people make fun of corporate America so much, is because they're not perfect and people are unhappy. But sometimes, but I think that that is a level of a different avenue, I guess, of striving to perfection, within our space. Um,
Yeah,
out-
yeah. I think that's fair, and I also think that something to keep in mind is that whole idea, know who you are and dress accordingly, doesn't fit just for your messaging and your branding. It's
Mhm.
for how you operate. It's how you show up in the world. It's how you connect with people. If you're a very serious and academic person, don't try to be some dude with your colleagues, right? You've got to be true to yourself, and I think that applies to anything, and any activity that you do engage in.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think it's very important to stay true to yourself and really anything that you do. I understand that there's certain spaces where you have to be slightly different, like a code switch, so to speak. But yeah, I do think that especially if you want to reach the clientele that you're looking for and you want to connect with well, I think that you will only do that by being yourself or your
Right,
most authentic being. I mean,
right,
you're going to work with if you're being a stick in the mud because you think you should be, you're going to work with a bunch of sticks in the mud and you're going to be miserable. um,
right.
and that sounds awful. So
It does.
yeah, I think that you have to be who you want to come from your customer base at the same time too, but of course you have to keep them in mind because I don't know, maybe you're a roofer and you don't need your roof fixed, but they do. So I think that's obviously there's the disconnect there for sure.
Right.
So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about maybe the digital world. So,
Okay.
um, how do you ensure that the brands you help create remain relatable and emotionally resonating with their audience? Sorry, that was a
Hmm.
bit of a mouthful.
Um, well, outside the context of digital,
Mhm,
the answer is we create a, messaging framework, which
mhm,
can also be called a brand house, of what you focus on continually and what is the best way that will resonate with those most important to your success. So
mhm,
that's the following. In terms of digital, we don't do a lot of digital execution. We help organizations get to the point where they can turn to a marketing execution firm and just and be ready to go.
mhm,
But in terms of digital, from a branding perspective, we think carefully about how colors, for example, translate into the digital space versus elsewhere. We think very carefully how about content size. Can this message be said in a shorter way in some situations and in longer ones another? And it's really about trying to make certain that we find that the brand has enough um, stretch into it and that enough elasticity to it that it still holds together, but it can work in a variety of situations.
okay, so what ways do you kind of what am I looking for? Um, Stay updated on branding trends
Mhm.
to create these stories that are still relevant to their audiences.
Yeah, well, I'm a member of the human race, and I'm in a Western civilization, and so I'm fascinated by brands and how they do and what they do and and how people perceive it. I don't know if you know this, but recently, Jaguar rebranded,
I didn't see that.
and it was
Nice.
massively derailed. People hated it, and so I spent a lot of time learning from other people's mistakes and learning from people's triumphs. Right. So I guess the way I stay on top of things is by staying on top of things.
Do you have any systems in place to make sure that you're not over consuming in these spaces?
Oh gosh, no,
Oh
no,
no!
just the
Oh
time of
no!
day.
That's not what I'm looking for.
Just how many hours there are in a day,
Oh
and how
my
and how
goodness.
heavy my eyelids get.
Well, I think you should.
Okay.
have some of those systems in place, because that would be probably healthier for your mental.
All right. Noted.
That's so funny. I talk to a lot because I know that it's very marketers are consumed with marketing constantly. And I think
Mhm.
that it's very difficult to stay out of a work mindset when that's something that's constantly in your face. Especially everyone is marketing everything. You see an ad and that's marketing and you're thinking about it and you're constantly going through it. But I always like to ask because I just think that sometimes that is not good for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
That's
so
fair.
I just like to ask because I just wonder what different people's strategies are to, maybe stay away from the space sometimes, or have maybe specific things that they do so that they know that they're allotted time slots or something like that.
Well,
'Cause
but if you're doing what you love, then
true,
you'll constantly want to continue doing it, right? So,
that's
if
true.
so, marketers, if they love marketing, then they're going to want to stay in it. They may not like the. I'm not speaking for myself here. They may not like the client relations part of it, but they like conceptually marketing, right?
Yeah,
So I think that if that's what people want to do with their time, let them do that. Let them do it with their time. It's all good.
true. I guess that's right. Is there ever a time where a brand comes to you kind of looking for a more gimmicky approach to something? I'm trying to think of a better way of phrasing this. Like,
I think I understand what you're saying. Do people come to us and want the next latest fad, or
mhm,
want to be the cool dad, right?
yeah.
That right. No, I think that I think, and this might go back to, I would like to think this goes back to how we market ourselves, for example,
Mhm,
that it's very clear. If you go to our website, it's very clear that we are very thoughtful and we have a methodology, and that it is based on data. So I think that sends a message that we are not people are just going to take orders and do what you want. That there's a process to it,
mhm.
or maybe it's just the fact that I've been lucky and not a lot of people have done it. Although I did have one client. Here's another kind of war story that you might find funny. I did have one client. We were working on a logo for them, and came up with some great logos. And I got an email of a photograph. The owner had, at his breakfast, had put down a glass of orange juice. He picked it up again and put it back down. And when he picked it up the third time, he noticed that the two rings of condensation overlapped each other. And he took a picture of that and he says, "This is our new logo." I said, "Okay." Now, to be fair, it wasn't a huge, it wasn't completely out of left field. There was a story that we could reasonably and truthfully align to those two circles put together.
Well, that's really good. I mean, you're still I think that it still says a lot that you're able to create a good thing out of a possibly unreasonable situation. I think that happens a lot with marketers too, because you still have to work within the
Yeah.
parameters of your customer base, even if sometimes it's a little bit kooky.
But
But
I have told clients that if there's a creative direction they want, and we don't agree, I'll say, okay, you can go in that direction, but you should know we will not put that in our portfolio because it's not work we would be proud of.
oh, I mean
And
that's
that
super.
tends to get their attention.
Hmm. I think that's a great way of phrasing it too, because I was actually going to ask how you would navigate that kind of situation. Is that just, oh, you
Well, the older I
you have
get,
more?
the older that I get, the less patience I have, and so I tend to be a little bit more forthright than I was, say, 15, 20 years ago.
That's fair. I think that's definitely allowed. But yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think that it's nice to it's nice to be able to navigate those situations. But I also understand. I mean, it's still a level of respect between you
Oh,
and a
yeah.
client. Of that, if they're expecting I don't know if it's too much, but something absurd from
Yeah.
you. It's yeah, I mean, you can listen to what they want and say, hey, like, we'll do this for you, but
Hmm.
we don't expect the results that you want. And then if
Right.
you have that in writing or whatever, then that's not really on you. It's just, why would they go forward with asking for your advice and then
Right.
want to do something against those wishes? But
Right. Exactly.
it's very interesting. Okay, well, going back to, well, I guess we're still talking about your clients, but how do you make sure that they stand out but also remain an authentic
Hmm.
when you're kind of thinking of a brand strategy?
That's a great question. And again, it goes back to research. One of the things we do as part of the research phase that I forgot to mention is we do a messaging audit. And
Mhm.
so we will look at their brand and that of 5 competitors, and
Oh.
we'll compare them to each other so that we can find places where they can be authentic yet different.
Mm.
And so once we do that, that gives us an understanding of the competitive landscape. Because let's face it, someone who might do private equity software might have the same look and feel as an organization that sells fertilizer to farms. That's okay, right?
Mhm.
They just have to look different than other private equity software
Yes.
organizations, right? So
Unless
that's
they're
where it's most
copying,
important. Sorry.
unless they're copying
Yeah.
the
Right. Right.
fertilizer
Right.
software website. But continue, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. But so I think it's important to know the term positioning is telling. If you think about it, it's how do you position yourself relative, because you can't position yourself in a vacuum. You
Yeah.
position yourself relative to other people, organizations, activities, things like that. But if you're in a white room all by yourself, you're not in a position. You're just in a white room all by yourself, if that makes sense. So it's
No.
it's important to know where you are and where everybody else is if you want to stand out.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. I think that you have to be unique in your space, but you don't necessarily have to be unique in every space, because
Right.
you're not being searched for in a different space. I never
Right.
really thought about it like that. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And well, to a testament to competitors, how do you balance the dynamic of comparing to competitors but not being overconsumed with the idea of um because I know that, okay, I'll rephrase, I'll explain and then rephrase. Sorry, sometimes I lose my train of thought. So I know that agencies specifically, I only know about agencies, is that a lot of them get overconsumed with competitors and comparing themselves in a way that's not that isn't working, I guess, if that makes sense, because they're constantly watching them, I guess,
Mm,
to be the next thing or to be better or to be
right.
whatever. How do you manage doing that but for your client without getting overconsumed?
That's a really interesting question, and I'm not sure I've thought about it too much, but as you were describing that, to me, it sounds like the difference between being a leader and a follower. It's important to know who you are relative to other people, but you can't let that define you. You need to lead with who you are in a way that is authentic and differentiated, but you can't spend your entire time trying to maintain that differentiation. Because if you're leading, chances are they're going to want to differentiate themselves as well,
Mhm.
unless they're really sketchy.
Oh, they're
Um,
copying you.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Mhm.
I think it's important that you make a decision and then stick with it until you have data that suggests it's not working.
I think that is perfect advice. I don't know. I just think that a lot of any business is sometimes can get overconsumed with the people that do things similar to them because they want to stand out and they want to be different. But I think that if you focus on yourself and your craft and whatever it may be that you are selling, or um, it's just important that you know what you are doing and who you are. And I think
Mhm.
that, like you said, that depicts you between being a leader and a follower. They're not, I think people will gravitate towards you for that reason. And then you'll be the people that competitors are overconsumed with rather than you being the opposite.
Right, and you'll be the kind of organization that people, um, who are a good fit for you wanna work with.
hmm And I think that's what everyone really wants is
Mm.
to have a good dynamic between them and their clientele. Well, this is perfect to stop because you gave really good advice. So this is a great place to end on, and we're also all out of time. But thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I think this was a great chat, and
Well,
I can tell that you've been on podcasts before. You talk
yeah.
very eloquently.
Thank you. No, I like, you do what you love, and I love talking about marketing and branding, and so anytime, anytime, Shannon.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching and or listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to learn more from this podcast, like I get to do every time. Thank you so much.